1, 2, 3. This is working.
I'd like to call to order this July 14th, 2021 regular meeting of the Board of Education. Will you please call the roll?
Mr. Gomez?
Here.
Dr. Hall?
Here.
Ms. Moffitt? Here. Ms. Schofield?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here. Item B, agenda, motion to approve the agenda. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the agenda of the July 14th, 2021 regular Board of Education meeting. Action by the Board of Education in adoption of a consent agenda means that all items are adopted by one singular motion unless a member of the Board of Education, treasurer, or superintendent requests that any such item be removed from the consent agenda and voted upon separately.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. Before I make the motion, to clarify, we were waiting as the Board of Education. Today was the last day that the governor could act on House Bill 244, which, as we know, has implications for our current policy EBEA, which is on facial coverings, and the governor did sign that within the last 2 hours, I think. So we now need to get rid of that policy for the time being, and then go back to policy committee next Wednesday and determine what, if any, policy we want to have. So I'd make a motion to amend the agenda to make a new item I3, the suspension of policy EBEA, facial coverings.
I'll second.
It's moved and seconded that we amend our agenda to add a new item I3, the suspension of board policy EBEA, facial coverings. Any discussion? Roll call on the amendment.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Moffitt? Ms. Schofield?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye. And back to our original motion to approve the agenda as amended. Any
Dr.
discussion?
Nope.
Roll call.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Moffitt?
Aye.
Ms. Schofield?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Opening ceremony. Welcome. Our vision, Cuyahoga Falls City Schools, the hub of our community, committed to a culture of caring. We innovate, we create, we personalize education for all. Our mission, every student, every day, every opportunity. Informational items. This meeting is a meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district business. It is not a public community meeting, although there are opportunities for public participation. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic found on the meeting agenda, the individual must complete a registration form found inside the attendance notebook and present it to the treasurer. Following the introduction of the topic by the board president, followed by board discussion, the individual will be recognized. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic not found on the meeting agenda, she or he must notify the superintendent and/or board president of the topic no later than 3 business days in advance of the meeting. These individuals may share their comments during the board business portion of the agenda. In both cases, the individual will preface comments by an announcement of his or her name and address and limit comments to 3 minutes. All statements should be directed to the board president. No person may address or question board members individually. In addition, in public session, the board will not hear complaints about school personnel nor against any person connected with the school system. An unabridged board agenda for this meeting can be found on your electronic device at the following address, www.board.docs.com/oh/cfalls/board.nsf. And for your convenience, hard copies of the board agenda may be found on the librarian's desk. And I think we have to share this evening because I think we've run out of copies. I apologize for that. The next regularly scheduled meetings of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education are on August 4th and August 18th. at 5:30 PM in the Cuyahoga Falls High School Library, 2300 4th Street, Cuyahoga Falls. Policy Committee meeting is scheduled for July 21st, 2021 at 5:05 PM in the Harold E. Wilson Administrative Center, 431 Stowe Avenue. And a Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for August 19th, 2021 at 9 AM in the Harold E. Wilson Administrative Center, 431 Stowe Avenue. Item 3, our Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Anthony Gomez.
Can you all please stand as you're able and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Item D, presentations. 1, Friend of Education Award, Dr. Nichols.
Thank you. Thank you, President Schofield, members of the Board of Education. Ryan, would you join me, please? The Friend of Education Award is a board award that is given on a quarterly basis to one of our individuals, businesses, or nonprofit organizations. Tonight, we're recognizing Riverfront YMCA. And for the 10 years that I've been here, our partnership has done nothing but grow with the YMCA. Starting with first Jill Colasar, that relationship. And then they joined our Alliance for School and Community Growth, which is now members over 70 members that come on first Tuesday or second Tuesday of every month. And we provide advice for both businesses and the school district, and it's really turned into be a great thing. And then YMCA, of course, houses, or we house the before and after school education program, base program, at all 6 of our elementaries, and the YMCA provides the staffing for that and programming for that piece. And this coming school year, that is going to be expanded pretty substantially. And Ryan's been a great help in that process. A number of our people, our local officials, serve with the YMCA on the YMCA board. So you can see that this partnership has just continued to grow and blossom. And we really appreciate the partnership, Ryan. You've taken this and moved it to the next level, and we continue to do so. So I have a plaque here that it says the certificate is presented to Riverfront YMCA in recognition of your 10-year partnership with Cuyahoga Falls City Schools. I'm sure it goes much farther back than that. YMCA also serves as the home for our gymnastics team, and it's the partnership just goes on and on. Your collaboration with the Cuyahoga Falls City School District, expanding before and after school education-based program, truly establishes you as a member of our Black Tiger family. Ryan, thank you so much.
I think you ended up going over just about every partnership, at least I have in my head. Although just last week I was working with Joe on a couple other things as well too. But and we had the opportunity this year to work with Craig Wargowski and the DECA students that have just done a phenomenal job with the apparel, and so we had some opportunities to really connect with them in that aspect as well. Again, we are very humbled and honored to have this award, and it truly does mean a lot to us. And we know that the partnership will only continue, and so we are going to continue to look forward to that because we know that ultimately, at the end of the day, we're fortunate to be able to serve and help the same families that we are trying to continue to serve and make an impact on, not only within the school district, but those ties to the YMCA as well. So thank you very much. This means a lot to us, and we look forward to our continued
We're going to get a picture.
Thank you.
We haven't been able to take pictures with our Friend of Education and our honorees for so long, so this is actually a big night. We had to put all that on hold. So get your plaque.
Okay.
Flower and
flower.
everything. Right in front. And your flower. Come on right up here. We'll hide behind you.
Okay.
I'm not Patty. Patty's up front.
We always try and put the tall people
Where's
in the
Patty?
front. Go Patty.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there you go with that. I'm gonna take one more. This other
There's
piece.
two.
Other phone.
Go back to being the PR guy now. For a very short time. There we go. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Right.
Sign.
Thank you.
No.
Just pushing me around. I think I got your chair. Did you? It's still a little lower. We're ready for item 2, our construction update with TDA in Hammond. So I see we have our guest with us this evening.
Seen how if that was a yellow stripe on her on her britches, she really would have top tiger nominations, wouldn't she?
Good evening. Happy to be here. Some of us were here last week for your meeting, which was not last week. So happy to see people here and the lights aren't out and all that. But we as an internal team with Hammond kind of put together what we've been up to for the last month as we typically do. So we kicked off the schematic design phase of the project in earnest at the beginning of June. So we started June 3rd with an eco charrette. So that is a group of our core team and teachers and some maintenance folks where we discussed sustainability goals for the project. So the OFCC does require us to maintain a LEED certification for the building. And so that was really setting up our checklist about how we were going to achieve that goal. So that kicked off our month of June. We had a regular core team meeting that day as well. And then the next week, Scott, the project manager, and I joined the administrative team for their administrative retreat. We discussed feedback from staff that we've been getting in our staff engagement sessions. We reviewed some case studies in a little bit deeper detail. And we, again, just used it as some additional time with the administrative group to talk about our next steps forward. On June 10th, we organized tours of 2 somewhat area schools, the Willoughby East Lake North and South High Schools. They were completed in 2019 and had some different examples of some of the types of spaces that we talked about in our visioning session and that you all and the staff have identified as being, spaces you're interested in pursuing for the new building. So we wanted to provide opportunities for the core and admin and some CLT members to be able to see those spaces in action, not just looking at photos of them. We had our design team meeting that day as well. And then the next week on June 17th, we had kind of 3 meetings that day. We met with the CLT. So that's our construction leadership team. So representatives from each grade level or department. We reviewed progress, their reactions from the tours, and then we reviewed some site diagram options with them. Those were the same diagrams we reviewed with you all that evening at the planning committee meeting. And we kind of discussed 2 schematic site options. We looked at which direction the stadium might want to face. We looked at site circulation and what was kind of fitting on the site. And we had a consensus between both the construction leadership team and the planning committee team that they preferred the same site diagram. So that is what we have continued to develop and bake as we've moved forward into design. The 24th, we had a design team meeting, June 24th, and that kind of closed out June for us. And then we kicked off July with a core team meeting. And then last week on the 8th, we arranged 2 more opportunities to tour buildings. So while we toured high schools, on the 10th of June. This time we toured a couple combination schools. We toured the North Ridgeville Academic Center, which is a 3rd through 8th grade building, And then we toured North Olmsted 6 through 12. And those are two building tours that I know that those of you who are on the planning committee, I think all of you went on those tours, or majority of you went on those tours during planning and pre-bond. So we wanted to open those opportunities up for the folks who are now involved on the construction leadership team as well. And that gave us an opportunity to look at more of the middle school side of things that we didn't get to see in Willoughby Eastlake earlier in the month. We had a design team meeting following that, and then that takes us up to where we currently are. So we are continuing to work through our schematic design submission right now. The formal submission, if you recall, is due at the end of August. So that's the first time where we will package everything up together, and it goes as a partial submission to you all, and it goes to Hammond, and they will do a schematic design estimate. TDA will do a schematic design estimate, and then we'll compare those. So we'll use the month of September to work through those estimates, and we will reconcile those estimates. And then that way, when school kicks back off next year, we will plan to come before you to do a more cohesive design presentation, and also to report on just status of the budget and schedule and things of that nature. So that will be our first kind of pencils down, let's see where we are moment. And we're kind of full steam ahead on the design side through the end of August. So that is TDA's update. And I don't know, Jeff, if you had anything from Hammond's side?
Just a couple of items. The schematic design, when we get those documents, there's a lot of, TDA is working on, the actual documents, the drawings and things of that nature that you're going to see. But the actual package, when we talk about the phase submission package with the state's program, there's a lot of documents that go with that. And so, we'll be compiling those documents. And as we get closer with it, we'll share, some of that information with you. They're really focused in on their compliance with their program, of course. And as we are, lead certification and things of that nature. So a lot of work goes into that, to fulfill the obligation with the state. And a lot of that information that they require is really useful information for the Board of Education as well to understand, what's in the design and everything. So as we get a little bit closer, we'll be talking about those things. And when we present that, we'll certainly be here to answer any questions that you may have. It's going to be a lot of information. And some of it, like I say, is really good information and useful information. Others information may not be as useful, but it's required information.
I would like to add that with OFCC, we are progressing towards project agreements, OFCC with Hammond and with TDA, and our council will be involved in that process as well.
Any questions for either Jeff or Abby? Board members.
Where are we at in terms of Newberry and the abatement and then demolition? Do we have an idea of when that might be? I don't know. We talked about doing it this fall, so I didn't know if that was still the plan.
So we, as a team, provided a request for proposal to Gandy Environmental, who has done their survey of the building. So it's a little more involved than the typical like AHERA documentation that they have to do every so many years. So there's a little bit more testing involved and a little bit more information that they gather. And so that process is complete. And they are coordinating with our team and have spoke with some folks at Hammond's team to put together the abatement specifications and the drawings that will go out to bid. That will get paired with a site demolition package that will be prepared by us, TDA, and our civil engineer. And that will go out to bid. So that process is moving along. But as far as status right now, we are working on taking the information that was put together during those surveys and turning it into a package that Hammond can bid out to abatement and demolition contractors.
And we'll be able to work with whomever that contractor is to make sure that like they're not bringing traffic on the site during drop off or pick off at Bullock. Because I mean, once we're back in school, I don't want to add to already difficult traffic patterns.
No, that's a great point, and I would think that as we will with the rest of the building plan, we typically put together a site utilization plan as part of any scope of any project that we put out, and we'd be happy to review that with you as it's available. That's usually something that we work through with the successful bidder as well, and so we can definitely put that together for you all to review.
And then we have a construction manager at risk. So would that person be the person on site during the demo? Or would it be more like when we demoed Sill and it was like our people working with?
No,
It would be-
It'll be y'all.
yeah, exactly. We're going to bid it out and we're going to oversee that.
Okay.
So it's going to be the same process as with the school, only in this particular case, we're going to be abating and demolishing the building. Gandy, as Abby mentioned, they're out there doing, pulling together the asbestos survey documents. Much of the same information that you may have from your HERE reports, but you're required when you're submitting for the permits and everything. You don't rely on that. You get, fresh testing and everything. So we'll put together the specifications. So we're going to have an abatement contractor as well as a demolition contractor. And as Abby mentioned, we certainly will do a site utilization plan. We'll be sensitive, obviously, to the ongoing operations at Bullock, but the location of Newberry. That's going to be, it's a smaller building. It's going to be relatively, simple process of going through that. But yeah, we will bid that out to subcontractors and then we will manage that as well. So we'll be out there on site and then we'll work with Joe as well, through that process. And it'll be good because then that, it's kind of that synergy I've been talking about with the architect, us and with Joe and his staff. So we'll get kind of a trial run for when we get into the big project.
Yeah. And while we had a recent example of Sill, we know people want to walk through it one more time. They want to commemorative brick. And the other thing is what we did with Sill is we did like a one-pager for the community and went out and distributed it. So as we get a date closer to the time, I want to make sure we do that again. I can volunteer the board to do it again like we did last time for Sill. But just to make sure people in the neighborhood know, hey, there's going to be construction, there's going to be loud, just so that they're prepared and contact information. So thank you all for that.
Other comments? So with us being sort of mid-July and this big packet of paper headed downstate the end of August, we're like in a 6-week window of a flurry of activity.
Yes.
And will the August presentation to the board have enough of this finalized that you could include that information in what you provide to us?
As far as a schematic design presentation, we can certainly pull some of that together for the August meeting, but we really like to come to you with not only the design in hand, but we like to be able to confidently state to you that it's on budget. And so that's why I alluded to September being a little bit more robust of a design presentation, because we'll have had time then to put numbers to the design and then we can report, here's the design, it's on budget. That's the way we like this process to go. But as an update to you all of design progress, we can certainly do something in August. Yeah.
Great. Okay, good. Thank you.
But I think the more polished and more robust presentation in September will align better.
So the expectations for the end of August from the Facilities Commission is not so much the cost piece, but the lead criteria and those factors?
Their focus is compliance.
Okay.
And it's all, and the end, so the end of August is the first deadline for the design team. So engineers, architecture team, we put together drawings and specifications and some front end information. We hand it off to Hammond. Hammond does their review, and then Hammond's review and our estimates all get pulled together into a larger schematic design package, and that is the formal submission to the state.
Okay.
So it's kind of the design piece gets done, and then we kind of take that month where we just work on estimating that design.
Okay.
But the cost information and the constructability reviews and the compliance reviews that are being done all are part of that final submission that lags a little bit behind that. So it's us kind of passing the baton to them for the first time in the process.
Thank you. Other questions, board members?
In the compliance, it's a schematic design, it's that first iteration of your floor plan, some elevations and things of that nature. So you don't have that great amount of detail. So what they're looking for is that, they're looking for the square footage of the building, the spaces and things of that nature. So, we help them in understanding that. And of course, locally funded initiatives. So they like to understand, this is what the project agreement says, this is the building, and, it meets our Ohio School Design Manual compliance standards. And then, oh, by the way, there's additional square footage here. And so we capture that as well. So they understand that, there is additional square footage or maybe material upgrades and things of that nature. So that's what they're really mainly focused on. But it's schematic design. Again, the detail level of detail isn't there for really getting into the details. When you get into schematic or the design development and then the construction documents, when you get all the furniture and things of that nature in there. So when you see the schematic design, you're not going to see a lot of casework furniture and things of that nature that you will see in the later iterations.
Mr. Gomez, did you have another
Yeah,
question?
at our planning team meeting, we ended with homework and you were supposed to send that out to us. And we didn't get it as the planning team. You're going to email those slides. I don't know if you sent it to us and then we didn't send it out, but.
Yeah, so what we had talked about was the artifacts, like artifacts kind of committee. Yeah, so we can follow up with the administration and send and make sure that gets to you. Yep. I think that would work nicely with the comment about wanting the community to have the opportunity to come through the buildings again. I think it kind of ties in with that. We can write into our design specifications. You mentioned like the Take a Brick initiative. If that's something that the committee would like us to pursue, we can certainly put that into our demo docs so that we can coordinate, maybe we put a pallet of bricks out and give some times that people could come get them as an idea. So that will fit in nicely with that initiative that you mentioned as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it from us. So thank you for joining us at our meeting. We sure do appreciate these updates.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Item E, Treasurer CFO's business by consent agenda. Ms. Christy Stoikoi.
Excuse me. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve all items listed in the treasurer's consent agenda.
So moved. I'll second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. Permanent appropriations, I had emailed you guys earlier. There are just some changes. The initial amount that we had with OFCC changed slightly. So the amount that's in LFI versus the OFCC, our local share, it just shifted from one to the other. So those were slightly modified. And I thought there was something else. Oh, it came out that the ARP also provides IDEA, special education and preschool education funds, which we are recipients of amounts. So those were added to this as well.
Are those based on per pupil cost?
I don't know. They didn't really give us anything.
formula?
I mean, they didn't give us the formula. They put for the IDEA B, not the preschool. They put the amount in the column, and then they said a second column, the amount you get. So I don't know if it was the amount calculated and then prorated. There wasn't a lot of backup to it. I was looking today to try to figure out how it's going to be coded, if it's going to be kind of like ESSER, or if it's going to be under the IDEA and the preschool, which is where I ended up settling on, but that is subject to change. I couldn't find anything. And then the preschool amount didn't say anything other than here's the amount. So.
Okay.
that was that. You'll see the return of advances, just returning those back to the general fund now that we're in the next fiscal year. And our change funds, which we do every year at this time. Also in that email, I told you that normally athletics does 3,500, but the fact that we are moving to online ticketing, they're not going to need as much cash on hand this year. So they've reduced that to 1,500.
I had a question on the preschool because, like, was it a substantial change? Like, what are they really giving us money for?
It was part of the American Rescue
yeah.
Plan. I don't know specifically the details behind why. It's not a significant amount. The preschool, I think, was 17,000 we got, and the IDEAB was like 14,000. So it's nothing altering. We'll use the preschool to offset our excess costs to Summit County, and supplement IDEAB where we obviously everything doesn't cover from our original grant, but it was some subset of that bill that they included this time, which the first I heard of it was like last week. So they had never said it when they passed it originally, and now they're coming out with that. So I expect to see a little bit more, but I have not seen anything yet.
I mean, I'm happy for additional funds, but it's just kind of weird because it's not really enabling us to do.
Right. And it still falls
more.
under the same, it doesn't fall under ESSER rules. It falls under the same rules that apply to IDEAB and then to the IDEA preschool grant. So it's the same exact thing, just additional from the ARP.
Any further questions on the consent agenda? Roll call, please.
Ms. Moffett?
Aye.
Ms. Schofield?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Item F, Treasurer CFO's business.
I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the June 2021 investment schedule and monthly spending report.
So moved.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. It's all you.
Okay, a few more in here this time. So I'm going to start with all the red tree. So let's go to the regular, just one that says just red tree. So this is our main account that we've had for the last year and a half. So you can see what happened there. This is, again, these are all completely separate from each other in different accounts. So that's where we were at there for the month of June. Now, we have separate ones. So if we look at the local share, again, a separate account, you can see it's, we received the bond proceeds on June 15th. So we received this local share portion and our LFI portion. You're going to see on these negative interest similar to what you saw when we very first started with Red Tree, just because of the timing, and it was a short month, and there are fees involved in some of the purchase of these, and then so it will not be negative going forward. It's just because we didn't have a full month in, and it doesn't offset everything. But you can see that is the local share that is in partnership with OFCC. And then our LFI is also this, it's the same. That's our 24 million that's there. That's the separate, that's under our control completely. It's separate from the OFCC money. Again, it had slightly negative interest, but that will not be like that in the future. And then Red Tree additional proceeds. This was the accrued interest on the bonds. That will be gone by the end of this year. That will be used to pay a large principal payment in addition to what we've already had over the last couple of years at the end of December of this year. So that was over and above what the bonds were. It was accrued interest on those bonds that came to us, but those have been proceeded into the bond retirement fund to make a larger principal payment going forward. So we won't have that money for very long there in that account. I'll stop there. Do you have any questions on the Red Tree? Okay. Okay, so let's look at the 006. So, you can see, especially here in May and June, the revenue compared to the last few years. Obviously, in 2020, we were in remote learning and stay at home. But you can see even in June, compared, given that we're typically not in school in any part of June. May may be a shorter month depending on when school ends. So we've had some significant revenue from the federal reimbursement that we've been receiving. Excuse me. June expenditures, a little bit higher. There is a little bit higher, cost for the packaging and stuff. Those do end up getting reimbursed by ESSER. It's not a large amount, but I would say, over a couple months, maybe 20,000, 25, 20 to 30,000 there in packaging and supplies we need to do the to-go meals. So a positive for this month. And so they ended the year at 196,697, which is a far cry from where they were earlier in the year. Even with the advance, they were negative. As you see, we brought the advance back. And I know they've had good numbers this summer as far as reimbursement. So we're expecting to see those. Typically, we wouldn't receive anything in July. I think if you look up this year, they're negative because typically it's us doing refunds for students who have moved and they have money on their account still, and we're doing refunds. So you can see July, August, and September. I think we were at a net negative this year, but typically July is around $1,000. So there'll be a big difference there going forward, which will help them out and get them back to about where they were, if not more, by then. 001. Okay. June is always a low revenue month. As you can see, it's comparable. Last year is obviously down because they cut the last two state payments in the last 2 months there. So that's the reason for that. But it's pretty typical if you look back to 19 where we were at. We had probably, I think this is our highest expenditures. A lot of that was the emergency levy projects that we began, that we made payments on before the end of the year. So boilers and the roofs and different things. And that's the reason that's inflated there. We had quite a bit going on there. So you can see that's a negative, which is typically negative in June just due to the lack of revenue. But overall, we ended the year at 16.2 million cash balance, which is a little over 25% cash carryover for the year. And I think that's pretty close to where the forecast was. In May, we didn't have much. We didn't have anything that made any major impacts there. So that's good. It's been about $4 million each year, 19 to 20, and then 20 to 21. And we're looking at the same, maybe not the same exact amount, but we're looking at increasing that going forward into this year, fiscal 22. And then you look at the interest. That's the last one there. So there's a couple new lines added on here for our, no, one's hidden. The accrued interest is hidden, but it's supposed to be there. It was a negative $254. But we ended the year with 24,000 in Star, Ohio. In our regular Red Tree account, we ended with 41,000. That it's not too bad. It's still a long way from where we were in 18-19 and even the beginning of 19-20 school year. But it's steadily getting back to where it was. It's steady at a slow pace, but it's getting there. I'm sure you could see if you scroll down on some of those Red Trees, some of the rates we locked in, they're not high. They're 0.25 or 0.3. But there was a lot that was 0 0.1, 0.05, I know, a few months ago. So you will see these additional going forward. Again, it's all kept separate. It's required to be kept separate, both on the books, and it just helps to keep them separate off the books in the actual accounts that we hold at Red Tree for interest purposes themselves. So I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Stoykoy?
Yes, on the all funds, where, you know, it shows that humongous number
Yeah.
because of the bond. Is all funds going to continue to reflect that large number as we pay down the project, or what?
It will not. You know, we have that cash for all of the local share from OFCC and all of the LFI. So we've got that like 80 million sitting there right now. As we spend that money, the balances will go down because we've received all this up front.
So going forward, is there a way to do the graphs with and without that amount?
Yeah.
So that we see like what our all funds are, because it's going to be harder to compare.
Yep.
You know, you see that
Yep.
red line
Sure
that's
can.
so huge. And okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then I just wanted to celebrate that we ended with a little bit over 25%. Like that's been a goal of the board and the district for some time. So I want to take a moment to celebrate that. That's an accomplishment. I was wondering if, as you talk about financial reports and forecasting, is there any conversation in treasurer's circles about how inflation is going to impact forecasting?
Not yet. We typically get into those in August. We'll have our seminars, like our 2-day seminar for forecasting. So that's typically when we start talking about that stuff. It's not been a big topic of conversation. It's been a topic, but we'll delve more into that. Forecast 5, who does it, has they work with Howard Fleeter, and they work with, and I can't think of his name right now. He works for them. I see his face.
Sobel.
Yeah, Mike Sobel.
Yeah.
So he runs a lot of the different sessions, especially with regards to inflation and or real estate type things. So we'll see more of that. I'll get more details on that in August, along with the actual calculations for the new Fair School funding formula. We haven't still seen the actual calculation in itself. So they're going to start doing, I think, 1 or 2 hour webinars kind of breaking down the sections Forecast 5 is over the next 4 weeks. So I'm going to try to look at those and see if they have anything. I'm surprised but not surprised we haven't seen anything, at least a rough version, other than the allocated amount. We haven't seen much.
And then I have one last question. The last 2 months you provided us with that additional report, that app sum. Is that what you call it?
Oh yeah, was that never on there before?
No.
Oh. Well,
So could you just
you're welcome.
like give us a little tidbit about what's going on with?
Are we
that?
sure? I don't know. I thought it was always on there. Anyway,
No,
this
this
is
last
just
2
this is just our appropriation. Like
Okay.
it's our appropriations report.
No, I mean I'm always happy to have more information because stuff you share with us, the community gets to see too. So
Yeah.
it's not
okay.
a bad thing, but I just
didn't
was
know. I
wondering what it
don't know why.
was so that I could make sure I understood it.
always thought it was on there. Well, there you go. So yeah, that's just our appropriations report at the end of each month.
Okay. I appreciate it though.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll continue it then.
I think that does it. Roll call.
Ms. Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Ms. Moffett.
Aye.
Comments. I don't have a whole lot in the way of comments. I will say that we're going to start gearing up to change over our payroll system this fall. So we're going to start doing some back work here in August and September to move to the new state software. They're redesigned, so it's the same platform that we use now, but it's updated. It's a little bit more web-based. It's not a DOS system that nobody understands and can't use. It's not going to be perfect or fix, all the little things that we wish we could do, but they are phasing out what we're using now by the end of 2023. So we have to move, and this is our phase to go. So NeoNet will be assisting us. We'll be doing some parallel work for a while in both systems just to make sure we've got everything squared away. But that's the next big thing coming up for us in the fall.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Item G, Superintendent CEO's business by consent agenda. Dr. Nichols?
Thank you, President Schofield. Members of the board, it's recommended that the Board of Education approve all items listed in the superintendent's business consent agenda.
So moved.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on these items?
I mentioned to Dr. Nichols the one change that we need to make in the elementary handbook, so. I
Yes,
think-
with our change at that elementary school.
Correct. Thank you.
Other comments or questions?
Say another thank you to the YMCA for finding a new way to strengthen another partnership with us. It's not, I know there's gonna be more information in the fall for families, correct? And events at the various schools, so I look forward to getting to attend those and learn more about the program.
Other questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Moffett?
Aye.
Ms. Schofield?
Aye. Item H, Superintendent CEO's business.
Number one, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the attached contract with Learning A to Z.
Motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
We've participated with Learning A to Z, and it's a tool that our teachers have had for quite some time to identify the reading levels of our students and to help push them forward. I have a packet of material here if anybody would like to look at some of the samples that come from Learning A to Z. It is not, I know one of the concerns of the board is the amount of online activity, and this is a combination of online printed books, but mostly it's printed books as you see the materials are printed materials, I should say.
And these are for the 4 schools that aren't engaged in the literacy pilot. Is that correct?
That's correct, and it'll gauge it'll help to gauge the success rate of our pilot and frankly, the success rate of Learning A to Z.
Other questions on this item?
Yeah, I just wondered kind of what it is too. Are the kids actually reading?
Yeah.
And are they writing?
It's teaching them how to read.
Okay,
Yeah,
So-
that's what it's used for then, and assessing their learning,
Their
their
ability.
reading levels.
okay. I thought,
Oh, sorry.
no, it's okay. Go ahead.
So there's a series of fiction and nonfiction reading
Okay.
selections. There's differentiated student reading with more than 29 different reading levels associated with it. Structural supports on key reading skills, fluency, comprehension, writing, and vocabulary. So diverse reading selections for our EL population.
I appreciate you providing us that to look at. This was just one of my 2 concerns. First concern was that it was all electronic, so I appreciate that because now I know that it's not. My other concern that I still have is that the RAS for Kids, we're using that in lieu of getting real books to kids. And I've seen it happen in conversations with our elementary media specialists and our elementary curriculum person, that we're using that in lieu of getting real books to kids. And we all agree that this research shows real books are better for kids learning. So that's my other big concern. The fact that there's enough other good stuff, I'll certainly support that. I don't want to take resources away from our teachers. That's not my goal. But I just want to make sure that we're spending money on getting the most impactful things to kids, which would be real books. And so.
Yeah, and this does have some writing with it
Mhm.
as well?
Mhm.
Okay.
Other comments on this item? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gomez,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Ms. Moffett,
Aye.
Ms. Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White.
Next item, thank you. Next item is item number 2 is recommended that Board of Education approve the contract with the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio.
So moved.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded.
So for a few years, we've had Leah Travis come from the ESC of Northeast Ohio to work with our teachers and our principals on the analysis of our MAP scores. And as you know, we have to have, some tool, and some places use STAR, and we have chosen to use NWEA MAP for years. And so twice a year in the fall and in the winter at each one of our schools, that's where the 18 comes from. Twice a year, she comes in and works with our principals and with our teachers on the analysis of MAP scores, and then using that to define some instructional strategies, from one testing window to the next testing window, and so on and so forth.
Do you know how many years we've been contracting with her? Do we have that information?
Not off the top of my head, I don't.
My concern is that I think we have really good principals. I believe that, at least. We have very good principals, and the goal should be that they would lead these conversations on what's going on in their schools. And I just want to make sure that we're pushing towards that. Once again, I'll say, I won't take resources away from people. So I'll support having her for another year, because it goes against what I believe in, take resources away from people. And I won't do that personally, but I am still concerned that at a certain point, we're using it as a crutch when we should really be encouraging our principals, who are our building leaders, to be leading these conversations. And I just want to make sure that we're giving them that opportunity to shine as well. If there's even still in the future, they feel like it would be great to have additional support and they are leading this, that's great as well too. But I just want to make sure we are letting our leaders lead.
Right. And as you have your Leading with Focus book here, and as we're doing a book study on resilient leadership, that is a major emphasis going into this particular school year is on leadership, and specifically instructional leadership. I've already had a number of conversations with Dr. Cruz, identifying that as a key component or a key point of emphasis in our professional development schedule.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the contract with the ESC?
I just have a comment. I hope we're not just working to improve MAP scores. That's my concern, is that we're not having kids read and write enough. And that we're looking at the data from test scores. You know how I feel about that. So that's just a comment. I'm just concerned. This 18 days of, I don't know when that's going to take place, the 18 days, but that just seems like quite a bit.
Like I said, it's 2 days per school.
Okay.
It's at the fall assessment and
that's
the winter assessment.
Okay.
And, the scores are only as good as how they drive the instructional strategies. We all know that. And so that's the point of emphasis in working with the teachers to use all that MAP can provide. MAP's not just an assessment for us. I mean, it identifies where we're aligned with standards, where we're not aligned with standards, what instructional strategies can be implemented to improve in those particular areas. I appreciate your point with regard to just the numbers, but it's much deeper than just the numbers. It's all about instruction.
Any questions, further questions or comments on the contract? Please call the roll.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Moffett?
Aye.
Ms. Schofield?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
And the third item, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the contracts with Gallup-Aid.
So moved.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
We've gone round and round with regard to Gallup-Aid, and I know there's varying levels of support for Gallup-Aid. I'll share with you the justification for the contract. Gallup-Aid curriculum is aligned with the Social Studies Ohio Learning Standards, strands, themes, and topics, and prepares students for grade level achievement. Lessons are based on social studies content, area knowledge, and biographies of historical figures. Content is presented through a lens of equity to provide sensitivity, respect, inclusion, encouragement. The instruction is designed to support students who face physical learning, mental health, language acquisition, and other challenges that may impact their lives. Curriculum is presented for students to learn to think critically and analytically so that they are empowered to draw their own conclusions. We've done some historical digging into, given our consternation about Gallup-Aid in and of itself, and find that we have actually had Gallup-Aid in the district since 2015 as a resource material. We, as you know, this year we have created a 6-year plan in terms of curriculum review. And social studies certainly is a part of that. Right now, unfortunately, our materials are frankly woefully inadequate. And when and if we take something like this away, then it leaves teachers to find their own resources. You know, it's embarrassing to say that we probably don't even have a class set of texts. You know, the district where we were financially and what we've been able to do financially so that we can implement this curriculum schedule, 6-year curriculum schedule, it is good and it's remarkable, and that's where we need to be. But right now, to pull this away from our teachers right now would cause them to go to pay teachers and be, you know, all over the place. So that's why it comes with the recommendation from the administration. And so that I'll just stop talking there.
Well, I think, at least for me, my concern isn't that I don't believe that our social studies curriculum otherwise would be woefully inadequate. I agree. And I also don't think that this is a terrible resource. We had a great presentation on it last year, and it's a good social studies resource. My real issue is that we, year after year, buy them for every student, but we keep hearing from different board members that not every student is using that. So there doesn't seem to be much evaluation of what the value of the resource is, who's using the resource. I don't want to take this resource away from teachers that are using it, but the reality is I talked to a few middle school parents last night who had 8th graders last year, and they never even got a copy of this last year in their 8th grade social studies class. So my real issue is that we're not all perhaps wisely spending our money here and buying a copy for every student when not every student's even getting a copy of it.
Sure.
And that's my issue. I think it's a good resource with the situation that we're in. It's not anything against the resource. It's that we haven't taken the time to make sure that the resource is providing the value that it should in the classroom.
That's fair.
And I think that was my concern too, is how many teachers are actually using it? You know, how often do they, I just like some answers to those things to see, you know, how much this does. And again, I don't want to take away resources either, but
But doesn't this afford the BLTs an opportunity to work with their staff so that they can get an understanding of how it's being used in the classroom and also how it aligns, or they can maybe do an additional PD of some sort to tie the focus book that we looked at for curriculum to align better with Gallup-Aid so that it can be the utmost resource for each of the kids. The fact that we hear parents saying, my kid didn't see it, concerns me only because what's happening in that particular classroom. Therefore, we need to go back to the BLTs and the administrators of those buildings and say, why and how?
Yeah.
You know, the questions that we continue to ask, because if we have a resource, we want to use it most effectively. And if we're not, then it goes to the leadership within the building or within the department.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Roll call.
Ms. Moffett,
Aye.
Ms. Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez,
Aye.
Dr. Hall.
Thank you. In terms of my comments, really you are addressing what my comments might have been this evening with regard to return to school. We certainly have been watching House Bill 244 evolve. And like you had mentioned, it was signed today. We've seen the CDC guide, the recommendations come out. We met, we being Akron area superintendents, with Donna Skoda and Tanya Burford today. And so I put before you a document, a draft of return to school, and you can see the highlighted area, which is where I felt that 244 was going to land. I wrote that before, obviously before it was signed, but that's where we are. And send your comments to me this weekend, if you will, and I'll post it Monday. Normalcy is the standard fare in that document. One thing that I will note that was talked about today, and many people didn't even know, some superintendents didn't even know, is that the CDC, there's a federal requirement that masks be worn on public transportation, which is inclusive of school buses. CDC doesn't, they generally have recommendations. That particular piece is a requirement. And so that left some people scrambling a little bit today, but it's in that document as well.
That here, I believe.
What's that?
I believe Ms. Johnson was aware of that.
Yeah.
Has been following that.
Yeah, well, she shared a document with me, or actually Joe shared a document with me today that specifically says that out of the transportation regulations. So that's, I mean, could that change? Certainly could change, but right now that's a requirement. It's not a recommendation.
When you talk about return to school and normalcy, will that include jump starts, open houses, et cetera? There's been a lot of conversation in the community as to whether or not that will happen, how maybe we're not there yet. If we're not, that's okay too.
I don't want to speculate on that, but my sense is that it will include what we would think of as normalcy, the return to school with the jump starts and the pieces that we've had in years past. At least that would be my thought right now, but I don't want to commit to it.
I can appreciate that.
We are planning to do lunches or breakfasts in classrooms for a number of reasons, and then we'll probably do some lunches. We'll do lunches in the cafeterias without the shields. I mean, I'll let you read the document and you guys can chime in on those pieces. Now in the elementary, we'll probably still do assigned seating in the cafeterias, just for contact tracing purposes. Like I said, provide the feedback and I'll be ready to post it Monday. That concludes my comments for right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nichols. Item I, board business. Number 1, recognition of support organizations. It's recommended the Board of Education formally recognize the following support organizations for the 2021-22 school year: the Black Tiger Gridiron Alumni Club and the Instrumental Music Patrons. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. So this is the beginning, hopefully, of a list of organizations that we want to formally recognize. We have 2, and we hope there's more coming.
Yes, and KJ's running point on this for me. And I want to make it perfectly clear that we're not trying to be onerous and all of that and dictatorial or anything of that nature. But we definitely want to follow policy, and that is recognizing those nonprofit organizations that are affiliated with the school district. Now, it does occur that organizations use our logo and our images and name and are not necessarily affiliated with us. So we want to make sure that we formally recognize those that are.
Thank these two for being so quick and responsive, and particularly, I know the Gridiron had some questions and reservations at first, so a particular thank you to them for getting on board with us so we can recognize them.
Absolutely. Roll call, please.
Ms. Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Ms. Moffett.
Item 2, it's recommended the Board of Education amend and extend the current administrative contract between the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education and Ms. Christy Stoykoy, Treasurer CFO.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
Can't say how excited we are about this. It's an understatement with exclamation marks. We are so thrilled and delighted. Yeah, this
Story.
Thank you, Stoykoy. I'm sorry. As our treasurer, she has just been so delightful, so thorough, so professional. There are not enough adjectives to describe her work. So thank you to you and your department for the excellent work you're doing for us.
Thank you.
Here, here.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I was gonna say.
I think we just need a round of applause.
Yep, I agree.
I was just like, when I came on the board, there weren't supposed to be any superintendent or treasurer searches until like my last term on the board. And then in my first 2 years, I went through 2 treasurer searches, and I learned a lot from that process. And I'm grateful for it because I learned a lot about what a treasurer does by having to interview all these different treasurer candidates. But it's so nice to have someone consistently be in that job and to say, I'm okay with it being a 5-year contract. Because, you know, we didn't just throw that at her. We asked her, you know, do you see yourself potentially being here at that time? So to have potentially a treasurer here for 8 years straight would be just a wonderful thing. Things happen. I get that too. But to have somebody here for 8 years straight potentially
I think I already hold the record.
would
so.
be it would be really great. And something else I recently learned is that even though Ms. Stoykoy is very young for her profession, most of the treasurers are older than she. But she is still someone that other treasurers look to and look to see what she's thinking about different topics. So we really got a great person
Yes,
here.
yes.
So
Yes,
very
we do.
fortunate for the unfortunate circumstances that might have brought you to us, but grateful nonetheless.
Thank you.
Yes, we are very happy to have you, Ms. Story.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
You
for the
wanna
good
say
work
any-
you do.
I just want to thank you guys. There were some unfortunate circumstances. You guys decided to look past that or look into that and take what could have been considered a chance. And I'm really glad that that's the way it all worked out. I have a wonderful staff. I enjoy working here. I enjoy working with everybody here, the board, cabinet. It's been a good time. And so I'm excited and looking forward to the next 6 years now. Well, after you vote, let's see. I guess I should put the cart before the horse.
Well, we like your work. That's obvious. And as most of you know, I've just finished my 9th year on the board, and I've had 9 treasurer transitions. The treasurer who swore me in was followed by an interim, was followed by a treasurer, was followed by an interim, was followed by a treasurer, was followed by an interim, was followed by you. So you're actually the ninth in 9 years. So to say we're grateful for the stability is an understatement, but beyond stability, we're just grateful for you. Roll call.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Ms. Moffitt,
Enthusiastically, aye.
Ms. Schofield.
Aye. We had our new item 3 that we added when we amended our agenda, and that is to suspend board policy EBEA on facial coverings. So it's recommended the board suspend board policy EBEA on facial coverings. Motion
So moved.
Second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just to clarify for people, this House Bill 244, it says that you can't differentiate between vaccinated and unvaccinated people in terms of what they could do. And our current policy EBA did that. So therefore, with the governor signing that, we can't have a policy that does that. So there are options that we'll discuss at policy committee if we just want to make a recommendation, if we want to have a policy at all. And that'll be next Wednesday. If other board members have thoughts on that, please do share that with the policy committee before next Wednesday so we can take that into consideration.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Gomez,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Ms. Moffitt,
Aye.
Ms. Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White.
Our next item, public comments. We did have a couple of individuals who had indicated an interest in addressing the board on our mask policy, but since we just suspended that policy, those individuals are not here this evening. So we'll move past that item to new number 5, future agenda items.
I'd like to have as a future agenda item, at one of our, well, we know for a future agenda item, at our second meeting in August, we're gonna discuss leading with focus. And then at one of the meeting in August, I'd like to have the approval of the new job descriptions. I'm presuming they'll be ready to be approved by then, because we haven't heard anything otherwise. So one of the meetings in August to have those job descriptions for administrators.
Okay. Other items for future agendas?
Administrators, who, can you clarify?
The ones, you mean the job descriptions that I sent you earlier in the
Yeah,
spring?
we were supposed to have newly written ones as part of a new leadership packet, and they were supposed to be
Okay.
ready
Yeah,
to
yeah,
go.
okay,
Yes,
yeah,
okay, thank
okay. Just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page. And just as a return point, you asked last time with regard to research on the algebra piece.
Yeah,
SEI is working on that for
okay,
us.
thank you, I appreciate that.
We'll move on to committee reports. Alliance, Mrs. Moffett, anything?
We shall be meeting the second Tuesday of August.
Thank you. Athletics, Dr. Hall?
We're meeting next Thursday, the 22nd at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Board policy, Ms. White, Mr. Gomez?
We meet on the 21st at 5:05.
Business advisory, Ms. Moffett or Ms. White?
We meet in August. I think it's the 24th at 8.
Something like that, yeah.
It's right around there, end of month of August.
Yeah. Huh?
Financial advisory, Dr.
I
Hall?
don't think so.
I believe we're meeting August 19th at 9 a.m.
Thank you. Foundation, Mr.
We
Gomez?
did not meet this month, we'll meet next month.
Thank you. Legislative liaison, Mr. Gomez?
I have a couple things. We've covered House Bill 244. There's also some of the stuff in the budget starting to trickle out. I don't think that we have all of an understanding of it. It's like 2,500 pages. So I think even the people that give us the synopsis of it are still reading it. But one of the things that will impact us here in this district is that they changed the law on selling vacant buildings. So if you did not use a school building in the at least 60% of one of your school buildings in the last year for academic purposes, you're required then to put it up for lease or sale. So that's a new wrinkle in our future plans for this site
Mhm.
itself. So
Mhm.
I thought that was a notable piece. They also snuck in at the last minute changes to the state report card, and it's kind of a compromise, but it's more the Senate version than the House version, which is not what we wanted, but we're used to that. So the biggest change is that they're changing from letter grades to star systems. So instead of A through F, you have 1 through 5 stars. I don't know that that changes people's perceptions because you're going to assume 1 star is an F and 5 stars is an A. Where I mean, anyone would do that. So I don't expect people to think that differently. And then a lot of the other things that we were pushing for with Prepared for Success didn't get approved as well. But I have a feeling that Dr. Nichols will probably share more information on that in the future since he's on the state report card committee as well.
For sure.
And last, Student Achievement Liaison. Of course, during the summer, the district leadership team doesn't meet, and the OSBA Student Achievement Liaison Statewide Committee begins its meetings at the beginning of August. Virtually and in person will be the first one in Columbus for anyone who's interested in attending that.
Can I add real quick that, because I forgot to add it? We'll need a delegate for OSBA. I got the information for Capitol Conference.
Okay?
So,
Can that be a future agenda item, or should we do that this evening?
it can be, we can do a future agenda item and then I'll have the stuff here for you guys to sign.
Perfect.
Because they haven't sent out the information yet. I know.
They haven't sent out for Capitol Conference,
Yeah,
but
it starts July 17th. But
they did
haven't
send me
sent-
the paperwork for the delegate
Okay, but
though.
they haven't sent us like the info on what it's gonna be yet.
No, I haven't seen anything yet, so.
Mm-mm.
So it's slim pickings who's gonna do it.
It'll be,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Sorry.
We all know that.
We're ready for item 7, comments, and I'm first tonight, so today Dr. Nichols and I had an opportunity to meet with Mr. John Moyer, who will be leading our next book discussion, book study on resilient leadership. We had a great meeting with him, and we'll have some questions for you on good times for our monthly meeting with him over our assigned reading. So that'll be coming. The other piece of that is that the plan is to read the book during the first semester and have our discussions in breakout groups. And then second semester will be specific reporting out by breakout groups at board meetings, like what took place with Schmoker's focus book. So that's the tentative plan for now, for those of you who will be here. And that's it from me, Ms. White.
Okay, just a few things. Again, for anybody that didn't ever get or read Standardized Minds, it is an excellent book. I highly suggest it. It was published in 1999, so it is a little old, but I just wanted to read a few things that mean something to me. For example, there's abundant reason to believe that the clearest route to raising the achievement levels of school children in a real and lasting sense may be quite contrary to popular belief, to diminish reliance on standardized testing and high-stakes accountability. And that was one thing that I wanted to point out. Also, discovering when school children are permitted to show their stuff for genuine purposes through writing, speaking, presenting, building, drawing, solving, synthesizing, and analyzing, then going to school suddenly becomes a lot more interesting. So just that. And then from focus, again, I wanted to point out, if I can find where I was, educators continue to be diverted toward new methods and programs toward an excessive and wholesome obsession with data, even as the most important aspects of curriculum, teaching, and literacy are mostly ignored. To me, that's really important. I don't want us to be focused on standardized tests as much as I think we are. Now, you can argue, I guess. I just think we do too much with those. And then finally, even fairly decent content, rich curriculum changes everything. It accelerates students' ability to read fluently and with comprehension. It ensures consistency in what is taught to each and every child. It reduces superfluous classroom activities, a reliance on worksheets, group work, and full-length movies. Liberal amounts of fairly ordinary curriculum embedded reading, discussion, and writing, including writing instruction, will transform the lives of students. And I can't say enough on that. And finally, I'm not done yet.
So that's not until the second
I know,
meeting in
I'm not
August,
done.
Patty.
I know, well, I'm sorry, but
You were that kid that read ahead.
I always do. I can't help it. But anyway, I already read Resilience too, but I'll go back and reread. Sorry, I'm retired. I have time. Okay. Anyway, we wholly embrace the time-consuming process of strategic planning. We would spend days formulating mission statements, conducting needs assessments, administering surveys, and developing elaborate action plans for each of our dozens of improved goals and initiatives. For all of this, we never achieved anything like district-wide consistency in the quality of instruction students receives. District leaders also dismissed the idea of technology as a primary driver of improvement and consciously shunned the popular but unproven machinations of strategic plans, which have been found to have little or no effect on actual performance. So I won't do any more, but just my thoughts that we need to focus on actual reading, annotating, and writing and discussion. Those are the things that I wish were in our strategic plan that every building was working for and towards. So, okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Ms. White.
Sure.
Mr. Gomez.
I have a couple things, and I promise not to read anything. We joined the National School Board Association earlier this year. There was a flub on their end with getting our emails enrolled. If you're not getting emails from them yet, if you could let me know and I can work to get that fixed for you. Because I started getting them and there's just a wealth of information every day. They do like a roundup and they like on different hot topics and they'll pull like how other states are handling it. Sometimes it's good information just to know. Sometimes it's good to just commiserate that other states deal with some of the same things we are. But there's been a lot of really good information. So if you're not getting that, let me know and we'll work to make that happen. And through that, I found out the CDC is hosting this Tuesday at 8 p.m. a free webinar on, they're calling it, What Will Return to School Look Like? So I'm going to try to go to that because that sounds very interesting and not many opportunities to get to hear from them yourself. I did have a question for Dr. Nichols, and you don't have to answer tonight, but I just want to throw it out there. People in the community have been asking about when they'll hear about their open enrollment applications. So if that's something you could look into, like, because I didn't know if perhaps it was dependent on our return to school, because I know that impacted it last year. But if they should have heard by now, or if there's some deadline by which they will hear, if you could get that back, because I've had a few people ask. So I would appreciate that. And then I wanted to highlight in the journal, which we get from the Ohio School Board Association, I thought there were two particularly good articles. One was district teams leading from the middle. So if you haven't read that one, I encourage you to read as we talk about leadership. It provided a really interesting look at what school board leadership would be. So I wanted to highlight that one. The other one was on communication. I won't say the title because it's specific to a brand, but it talked about how you can have a communication audit done. I'm sure this company's not the only one that can do that for you, but it talks about how communication audits find your weaknesses and who are the people in the community you're not reaching with your current communications. And I thought that was really interesting. And as we get whoever our next communications person will be, might be something we might want to look into. And lastly, I want to wish Mr. Wazoko well in his retirement. Being the first PR person in our district was going to be a huge challenge for anyone. And there were certainly some things that happened that would not have happened without him. So just want to acknowledge him and wish him well.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Dr. Hall.
Yeah, I don't have much to say. One thing, I certainly want to acknowledge that we have a lot of hardworking people in our district every day, but particularly at this time of year, you see when you walk into the school, there's like desks being moved around, and we have people in our facilities really doing a lot of deep cleaning and getting stuff ready for the following year, and cleaning up after the preceding year. So just want to acknowledge those workers and give a thanks to them.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. And Mrs. Moffett.
I saw some of those people out cutting grass and I want to take popsicles too. So please thank your crew for working in this excessive heat and the monsoon season that we're currently experiencing. But along with Mrs. White, apparently we're all pretty avid readers because we keep bringing literature to the board. But I know we spend a lot of time reading. And one of the books that Mrs. White shared with me is called The Sum of Us. And I realized I was rewriting the book as I was taking notes to return it to her. So I ordered my own copy, but I encourage lots of people who are listening to pick up some of these books that we have been reading because there is so much vital information that impacts the education of our kids. So if you're interested in running for the board, if you are a parent who is really looking at trends in education, and the current things that are going through, please pick up some of these copies and start reading because it really impacts the way you view things. I can't say enough about the changes in even experienced minds that happen when these materials come before us. So as a tribute to Ms. Greathouse, who firmly believed in reading, writing workshop, and everyone who experienced the joy of being in her classroom, and really the way she taught language arts, it's coming back again. The bottom of our desks are being seen once again. So we want to thank her and all of the people who were leaders and pioneers in that field. And we look forward to the exciting things that are going to be happening in our district based on focus, based on resilient leadership. I can't wait.
Thank
I'll
you,
be
Mrs.
watching it
Moffett.
from that side of the table. Thank you.
Item J, executive session. Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1, it is hereby moved that the board adjourn to executive session for the purpose of considering the employment of a public employee.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Ms. Moffett,
Aye.
Ms. Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez.
Aye.